Hello and welcome to DD India. I'm Amritpal Singh. You're watching a special program, Voice of the Global South, a show that brings you stories, news, achievements and concerns of a rising aspirational world. Let's begin today's episode. Voting in the world's largest democracy, India took off with its first phase of general elections on Friday. Nearly 1 billion people were eligible to cast their votes in the first phase. Polling concludes on the 1st of June and the counting of votes will take place on the 4th of June.
Polling for Phase 1 of the 7-phase election concluded on April 19th in the world's largest democracy. Voters across 102 constituencies across 21 states and union territories in India took part in the voting process. Nearly 62% voter turnout was seen and long queues were observed around the country where people gathered to exercise their right. Men and women alike were seen standing in queues to participate in this festival of democracy.
वोट हमारे लिए बहुत ज़रूरी है हमारे आने वाले बच्चे के लिए भी बहुत ज़रूरी है वोट देने के लिए
Political leaders also made their way to the polling station to cast their vote. By and large, the election was peaceful, barring a few untoward incidents. In Shillong, people said the development and better future of children were key issues for them, and keeping them in mind, they voted in this election. Voting also took place to elect new legislative assemblies in Arunachal Pradesh and Sikkim on Friday.
My main aim is to see to it that children do well in life, fare well in life. So the education, the field of education, that is, it matters a lot.
We are voting for the betterment of our children's future because as we have already, we have come to that age that now we have to think for our kids and children. So that's what we have voted for. Probably we have voted to the right person.
Election Commission of India also set up model polling stations in many parts of the state. These polling stations have wheelchair facility, selfie booths to attract young and first-time voters, sitting rooms for senior citizens, and even feeding rooms for babies. The second phase of the marathon election will be held on April 26, with 89 parliamentary seats up for grabs in 13 states. The following phase of voting will take place on May 7, May 13, May 20, May 25, and the last phase on June 1. The counting will take place on June 4th.
The crisis in the Middle East is just refusing to die down. In fact, it's escalating with every passing day. Following a drone attack by Iran on Israel last week, explosions were heard in Iran's Isfahan city early Friday morning. Though the loss was contained by activation of Iran's air defense systems, Iran said 3 drones were successfully shot down and there was no missile attack. On the 1st of April, Israeli warjets attacked an Iranian consulate building in Syria, killing at least 13 people, including 2 Iranian military commanders. Responding to which, Iran launched over 300 drones and missiles at Israel on the 13th of April.
It was a historic event when Iran directly attacked Israel with hundreds of drones, after being arch enemies for almost a century. Israel, however, said that it shot down almost 99% of the drones and did not suffer any major damage in these attacks.
Iran started an attack against Israel and launched more than 300 different threats. The Iranian threat made the Israel Defense Forces aerial and technological superiority together with a strong fighting coalition that together intercepted most of the threats. We intercepted 99% of threats launched towards Israel territory. This is a very significant strategic achievement.
These recent attacks reflect a paradigm shift in the security situation in West Asia and also in the world. The ongoing shadow war between Israel and Iran is now out in the open. This could have grave consequences in West Asia and may even spill beyond. The region is already reeling from the ongoing Hamas-Israel conflict since October 7 of last year.
From now on, if the Zionist regime attacks our interests, our properties, our personalities, and our citizens, will retaliate against them from the Islamic Republic of Iran.
Leaders across the world have condemned Iran's actions and have called for peace in the region. De-escalation of the situation is essential, as the world is already feeling the heat.
We urge all sides to exercise self-control and deal with discipline and responsibility with the various tensions that the region is going through. We must not be drawn into any escalation, which will undoubtedly have dangerous paths. And we stress on the need for de-escalation from all parties and for all of them to act responsibly and to exercise self-control and deal with all seriousness and responsibility with the dangers of regional escalation and its major and dangerous repercussions on international peace and security.
The impact of the escalating tensions is already being felt on global trade. And the situation can further worsen, especially in the Red Sea zone, where passage of cargo and oil has been witnessing disruptions since the Israel-Hamas conflict started. However, some analysts have said that this retaliatory action marks the end of the road for this conflict. US President Joe Biden has said that the US will not take part in a counteroffensive against Iran. Iran, already reeling under sanctions from various nations, cannot afford a larger conflict right now. The recent Iran-Israel conflict has brought out in the open a several-decade-long proxy war. It's now up to the two nations as well as the international organizations to chart out a solution for long-standing regional and global stability.
Experts suggest rising global temperatures caused by human-led climate change is leading to more extreme weather events around the world, including intense rainfall. Its impact has resulted in abnormal phenomena in weather patterns across the global south. This week, the United Arab Emirates and Oman witnessed record rainfall that flooded highways, inundated houses, stalled traffic, and trapped people in their homes. So far in April, more than 100 people have been killed in heavy rains, followed by flash floods that hit regions of Afghanistan and Pakistan.
It was an unusual day in the month of April in Dubai. The city came to a standstill with cars and buses submerged and stranded on the streets, flooded with water after heavy rains lashed the city and other parts of the United Arab Emirates. Torrential downpour killed at least one and caused damage to homes and establishments. Segments of major highways and international airport parkings saw abundant vehicles amid record rains across the parched desert nation of the Emirates.
This storm is considered historic because for the first time in approximately 57 years, a quantity of 254.8 millimeters of rain was recorded within less than 24 hours. So the fact that this is the quantity of rainfall that was recorded within less than 24 hours was historic. Normally, this amount of rain tends to be cumulative over 2 or 3 days. However, for this to happen during less than 24 hours and for the Khatam Shakla station in city of Al Ain to record this amount of rain was a historic climatic event for the National Center of Meteorology.
World's busiest airfield for international travel was completely inundated, halting air traffic as passengers struggled to reach terminals through the waterlogged city roads. Dubai was lashed with rains equivalent to over a year and a half's worth of downpour in less than a span of 24 hours. Residents used inflatable boats as means of transport to move around the flooded streets after a storm hit the Emirates. With at least 19 killed in Oman, rains have impacted other parts across West Asia, including Bahrain, Qatar, and Saudi Arabia. In many cities in these countries, roads have collapsed and homes have been inundated. On the other hand, Afghanistan has been also impacted by storms and torrential rains over the weekend and is dealing with a large number of casualties. Floods have claimed at least 66 lives and left several injured, many of which were killed when their homes collapsed on them. It has also significantly impacted agricultural land, damaging crops ahead of the harvest season, leaving families with no land and food. Calling for assistance, United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs in Afghanistan stated on social media site X that more than 1,000 houses and 63,000 plus acres of land has been damaged and destroyed. Debris of damaged homes floated in water, and residents were seen taking out their cattle and belongings buried under the mud.
About 200 acres of people's agricultural lands in this village have been destroyed by the flood. The crops were almost ready to harvest, but the flood destroyed them all.
Heaviest downpour in decades and floods have also wreaked havoc in the neighboring country Pakistan, killing over 60. Heavy rains triggered flash floods and caused houses to collapse in the northwestern Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province. In Balochistan and Punjab province, several died after being struck by lightning, and others were injured in structural collapse. Due to the heavy rains and widespread flooding, the country has suffered severe economic losses that run into billions. Officials have said that climate change plays a major factor in sudden unusual downpours that are currently being witnessed in the global south regions. Experts have also been linking such unusual weather patterns to the El Niño conditions, which are prevalent in multiple pockets across the globe in recent times.
At this point, we'll take a small break here. We'll be back with more on Global South Stories on the other side. Don't go away.
In a world that never stops, where information shapes our reality, one app stands out, helps you stay ahead of time. Introducing the DD India app, your gateway to a world of news right at your fingertips. Your most trusted source of news goes global, goes digital. Explore a world of options, top stories, live updates, in-depth analysis, and more. Stay informed wherever you are. Real-time alerts keep you ahead of the curve always. The DD India app, connecting you to the world one story at a time. Download now and explore the world of knowledge, insights, and authentic information.
India that invents. India that innovates. India that excites. India that invites. Land of possibility. Teeming with opportunities. Watch India Ideas each Thursday 8 p.m. only on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India and this is Voice of the Global South. Let's now move on to our next story. The United Nations says more than 1.8 million people have now fled Sudan due to conflict there. Conflict in Sudan is threatening to expand with fighting heating up. Many are now in South Sudan, Egypt, Chad, Ethiopia, where they are in desperate need of humanitarian aid. DD India's Patrick Oyet reports from South Sudan's capital, Juba.
Fighting between Sudan Armed Forces and the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces is continuing in Sudan. Every day, more Sudanese people are crossing into other countries fleeing violence at home.
Indiscriminate attacks that are killing, injuring and terrorizing civilians could amount to war crimes and crimes against humanity. Aid convoys have been targeted, humanitarian personnel and warehouses have been attacked, women and girls are subject to rampant sexual violence, and meanwhile, the impact of the conflict is spilling across borders. Over 8 million people have fled their homes in search of safety, 1.8 million to neighboring countries.
The East African regional body, known as Intergovernmental Authority on Development, says the only way out of the conflict is through a negotiated settlement.
We hope, as IGAD, that also we are working on that issue to solve that problem so that the region is at last peaceful and could concentrate instead of solving conflicts, solving their economic problem, economic development, building infrastructure, building peace and working also together for an economic integration of the region.
IGAD has appointed a South Sudanese lawyer to head the mediation team for the Sudan process. One South Sudanese political analyst says South Sudan is in a better position to head the search for peace for Sudan.
IGAD need to make use of this position of a stalemate as a way of bringing the parties together so that there is going to be an aspect of resolving this problem. Or else, if there is not going to be that possible, then there is possibility of a long civil war that is going to affect Sudan. And that thing will have a very big impact on South Sudan.
There are more than 4 parallel peace processes for Sudan now. IGAD is leading one process. The US and Saudi Arabia are heading another one. There is also a Libyan-Turkish process and an effort led by Egypt and Chad known as Neighbors of Sudan.
We are with the resolution of the IGAD, and if the IGAD changes its position, then it will sit again and decide what to do.
Violence erupted in Sudan in April last year, and up to now there is still no clear plan to end the fighting. The Intergovernmental Authority on Development, the African Union, and the United Nations mission in South Sudan are urging members of the international community to speak with one voice, harmonize the peace processes, and find durable peace for Sudan. Patrick Oyet in Juba reporting for DD India.
Dengue fever has tightened its grip across South America. In Peru, cases have tripled compared to last year, prompting a state of emergency. Brazil and Argentina are not spared, facing record outbreaks with innovative strategies underway. As the Southern Hemisphere braces for peak season, vigilance and urgent action are imperative in the fight against this relentless foe.
Across South America, an epidemic is silently spreading its deadly grasp. Dengue fever, a mosquito-borne viral illness, is wreaking havoc, leaving devastation in its wake. In Peru, the battle against dengue has reached critical levels. Cases and deaths have skyrocketed, tripling in comparison to last year. The government, under President Dina Boluarte, has declared a state of emergency, implementing drastic measures to contain the outbreak.
We currently have 135,000 cases, a little more, and 117 deaths have been registered, and we have 25 additional deaths that are under investigation. Last year, we had around 42,000 cases and 40 deaths, which means that the number of cases has tripled compared to the previous year.
But Peru is not alone in this fight. Even Brazil, the largest country in South America, is grappling with the dengue crisis. With over 1,100 deaths in 2024, Brazil faces a record outbreak. The Rio de Janeiro government has initiated innovative strategies, including the release of Wolbachia-infected mosquitoes, aimed at disrupting the transmission cycle of the dengue virus.
The war against the mosquito must be combined with other solutions, so we use different methods to do so. Then the Wolbachia strategy will protect 1.5 million people in the city of Rio de Janeiro, in the central region and the Grand Leopoldina. The strategy will take 2 years.
Meanwhile, in Argentina, the situation remains dire. Alongside Brazil, Argentina finds itself at the forefront of this epidemic. With the Pan American Health Organization warning of potentially the worst outbreak to date, Argentina's public health officials are racing against time to curb the spread of the disease.
At this moment, we have close to 25% of hospital occupation with dengue. I imagine that next year the situation will be more tense. We'll have second episodes and more severe dengue cases with shock dengue and hemorrhagic dengue.
The Pan American Health Organization, a United Nations agency, has highlighted the staggering numbers: over 3.5 million cases and 1,000 deaths across the Americas in the first quarter of 2024 alone. With the entire region on track for its highest ever number of cases, urgent action is imperative.
Probably this will be the worst dengue fever season in the Americas. For this reason, it's very important that the countries that are currently experiencing an increase in the transmission, that are experiencing epidemics, they need to redouble their efforts to provide more actions.
As the southern hemisphere approaches late summer, the peak season for dengue, vigilance is paramount. With billions at risk worldwide, comprehensive efforts in vector control and public awareness are crucial in combating the relentless foe. As the battle against dengue rages on, the stakes have never been so high.
The past years have seen mean absolute decline in the live coral cover of the global south region. The El Nino climate pattern has prompted warmer sea temperatures, causing the fourth global mass coral bleaching event. Substantial coral death has been confirmed in all the three ocean basins, that's Atlantic, Pacific and Indian, within a 365-day period. In response, a group of scuba diving experts in south of Philippines' capital Manila helped to restore damaged coral by creating nurseries.
The coral population around the globe has suffered extensive bleaching over the years due to climate change pushing tropical coral reefs past a tipping point. As a result of climate change and El Nino effect, the International Coral Reef Initiative officially declared the situations as fourth global mass coral bleaching. A huge stretch of coral reef are turning white this year in the wake of record warm ocean temperatures, which have resulted in the bleaching of sensitive coral reef ecosystems globally in at least 54 countries since February 2023. With summer months stretching longer and becoming hotter, the temperatures of seas and oceans have risen. Under these circumstances, the jewel-toned corals get stressed and expel their algae, causing them to turn bone white.
It's pretty obvious that climate change is continuing to drive heat stress that coral reefs cannot cope with. The corals recovering and the new recruits into the communities are not adapting at a pace fast enough to keep up with the pace of climate change.
The coastal town of Ban in Philippines is synonymous with its beautiful reefs and diving activities. The abundance and variety of marine life from the whole region can be found in their waters. These range from shells to marine vertebrates and even mammals. The coral reef in the town has been adversely impacted by natural calamities like typhoons and man-made obstructions like plastic waste and dynamite fishing factors adversely impacting the tourism industry in the region. Fearing threats brought by climate change during the mass bleaching event, scuba diving instructor Carmela Sevilla has initiated a plan to begin planting coral nurseries for damaged barrier reefs across the coast. That would contain the situation to a certain extent.
The nurseries, when they're created, has different kinds of corals. It has a selection of corals and it is closely monitored. So it will actually help scientists see which corals are more resilient to climate change, and therefore they will be able to create recommendations to propagate those kinds of corals.
A report in the UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change 2022 has warned that at just 1.2 degrees Celsius of warming above pre-industrial levels, the world has already passed a key threshold for coral reef survival. Also, the population explosion in the global south during the last few decades have added to the threats faced by the coral reefs from human activities. With the fourth mass global bleaching event underway, there are serious consequences for marine life, people and economies that have been relying on the reefs for existence. Now, to let the reefs survive, communities across the world need to immediately cut down on greenhouse gas emissions, significantly curb water pollution to ensure a friendly habitat for the corals to grow and add vibrant colors to the marine world.
This is it in today's edition of Voice of Global South. Do let us know your thoughts on the show. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. The app is available both on Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR codes on your screens right now to download. You can also connect with us on Facebook, X and Instagram. Also check out our website ddindia.co.in.